is Eyewitness News Up Close.
Anti-Semitism on the rise, and a most disturbing new report out this week, 6 months after the gun massacre at a synagogue in Pittsburgh, and just days after that deadly shooting at a synagogue in Southern California. The largest number of those hate crimes against Jews in the country are right here in our area. In fact, an 82% increase in this quarter alone in New York City. This morning, we talked to the head of the Anti-Defamation League in New York and New Jersey. Also this morning, the Alzheimer's epidemic. More than 5 million Americans have been diagnosed with it, and the number growing quickly as the baby boomers grow older and live longer. So how do we deal with an epidemic that takes such a big toll on the victims and on family members who are trying to care for them? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Up Close. I'm Bill Ritter. The number of anti-Semitic crimes in this country last year, among the highest in decades, and the number of assaults targeting Jews, doubling. That's according to a new report from the Anti-Defamation League. The states with the 3 highest incidents of anti-Semitism: New York, New Jersey, and California. This report comes days, of course, after that deadly shooting at the synagogue in Poway in eastern San Diego County, and days after a troubling new report from the NYPD. In a moment, we talk to the head of the Anti-Defamation League, but first, here's Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett.
People are in tears on the phone. They're terrified. They're scared to go back to school. They're scared to go to synagogue. They're scared to come out of their house because of this.
Evan Bernstein says the trend is alarming. An apparent shift from acts of vandalism to physical assaults against Jews. According to the Anti-Defamation League, although anti-Semitic incidents are down 11% in New York, anti-Semitic assaults are up 55%. And since the Pittsburgh synagogue attack, overall anti-Semitic incidents spiked by 170% here.
Every single one of these numbers has a person, a human being that was affected because of this anti-Semitic incident, whether they were called a or they had a swastika put on their desk, or they were assaulted because they were walking the synagogue on a Sabbath.
The vast majority of the state's anti-Semitic assaults last year took place in Brooklyn, including this incident in October when an Orthodox man was attacked with a stick. Researchers say anti-Semitism remains at historic levels, with nearly 1,900 incidents nationwide, and outright assaults against Jews have doubled, making 2018 the 3rd highest year on record, a year that included the 11 worshipers murdered in Pittsburgh, the deadliest act of anti-Semitism in American history.
We believe 10 to 14% of the American population is anti-Semitic, way down from the mid-20 percentage points that were in the 60s. But you're still dealing with 40 million people that now can become much more activated and ready to show their hate because they have a platform to do so. The shooter in San Diego, the shooter in Pittsburgh were utilizing online platforms. And I think that is the big game changer here.
Jewish New Yorkers we spoke with say they're determined not to be intimidated.
If any Jew has ever backed down in the history of persecution, we would have been wiped out a long time ago.
That was NJ Burkett reporting for us. Joining us now, Evan Bernstein, the director of the Anti-Defamation League for New York and New Jersey. Evan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill.
When you decided, I guess a couple weeks ago, to put out this report, with the timing of all this, you had no idea what kind of week this would be in terms of, I don't know what I can call it, anti-defamation, anti-Semitism awareness is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, I knew we had no idea anything would happen with San Diego. We had this date, we have to compile all of our data. It takes a lot of time to go through thousands of incidents to decide whether or not they're going to go into the audit or not, and it just happened to be in this this period of time that's been just really crazy over the last 4 or 5 days.
The shooting, the killing, the gun killing in Poway, California, at that synagogue. You had 2 cartoons in the international edition of the New York Times, which made tons of news.
Yes.
You had Holocaust Remembrance Day, and you had your report, plus a report this last week by the NYPD that showed, hate crimes in general are up, and anti-Semitic hate crimes are way up, nearly doubling in the first quarter.
82%. Yeah. It's really staggering, and we know NYPD is doing everything they can. They've been a tremendous partner with us in pushing back on hate crimes, especially against the Jewish community. But the numbers speak for themselves, and we are very concerned by the trends that we're seeing.
How are we here? How did we get to this point? It's frightening, especially when you remember the Holocaust. This is how Nazi Germany started. Yeah,
I think it's hard to make the analogies to the Holocaust right now. Thank God we don't have Jews being put onto.
And I don't mean to be directly, but it's frightening when you think.
It's very frightening. The trends, I started 6 years ago. The normalization I've seen in 6 years of anti-Semitic incidents, especially in New York, is staggering to me.
Why is it happening?
The sheer numbers. When you have so many, when we had a single swastika incident that would happen maybe once a month, 6 years ago, it'd be a big news story, it'd be coverage. Now it's a tweet, or maybe it just goes into the audit. And I think the challenge we have as elected officials and community members, when they see so many of these things, and now it's happening with shootings around the country, or it's happening with assaults, it becomes a numbness, and you don't respond in the same way you did when it was something that was less frequent. And it's a challenge.
Publicly, we don't respond. We become a little numb to it.
100%.
Another mass shooting, oh well. More swastikas, oh well. But in fact, individually, we do react to that.
Yeah, I mean, the ripple effect that happens to the individual that's affected, the family, the community, it's incredibly, incredibly disturbing, and it's a long-term effect. These kind of incidents, when someone has their home swastikaed, you don't just walk away from that in 24 hours, you're feeling better. There's a huge amount of hurt that takes place, and people are fearful. A lot of people are maybe even thinking about moving and leaving their communities, and we're seeing that now in Europe, where people are leaving their countries to go to Israel.
Let me just dissuade one notion that may be out there. Sometimes you look at this and it's at a school or something, you say, oh, where kids are being vandalized, and it gets dismissed. Somehow they understood that a swastika is a bad thing, and if anyone gave them any iota of information about what that swastika represents,
that's right.
Nazi Germany, the killing of 6 million Jews, you can't joke about that. And I don't think it's easy to dismiss just teenage vandalism.
No, we hear that a lot. If you look at the shooter who was in San Diego, I believe he was 19 years old. I mean, young people are aware of what's going on. They're getting radicalized online. They're seeing this information unfiltered. So much of hate has gone online. That's why we opened our Center of Technology and Society in Silicon Valley. It's going from the Charlottesville kind of public square to online, and young people are getting that information. Parents cannot monitor this, and they're getting radicalized by seeing these kinds of images of hate and also the blogs and stuff that they're reading.
And yet even a very liberal newspaper like the New York Times, which is progressive and wants peace in the Middle East, and is primarily owned, majority owners are Jews, they put out 2 cartoons in their international edition that were degrading to Jews and anti-Semitic. And I'm not so sure anyone thought about this until they should have thought, until it was too late, but they should have thought about it before. They were trying to make a political connection between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump politically, and the way they portrayed it was anti-Semitic.
100%. I mean, it was overtly anti-Semitic, and the editorial board, who's now since made 2 apologies, and we've been happy.
Fired the syndicator who does the cartoons.
That's right. They should never have gotten to that point. The New York Times is the gold standard for media, and there's no way any periodical in today's day and age should be publishing a cartoon that is almost exactly the kind of cartoon that was put out in, say, Germany in the 1930s. I mean, there was almost no difference.
What are we seeing in terms of white supremacists, white nationalists, and hatred of Jews? How much of these hate crimes are from that?
Well, so many hate crimes take place in Brooklyn, which is an anomaly because you've had since Crown Heights, and there's gentrification, and you have housing issues. There's a lot of things that happen in Brooklyn. It's really different than the rest of the country. But we certainly are experiencing quite a bit of white supremacist activity. There's been a lot of flyering to the group Identity of Europa, especially upstate New York and New Jersey. They're trying to go after the lone wolf. They're trying to get young people radicalized. They're targeting certain parts of the state of New York that are more economically depressed and can really go after certain individuals. And we've seen it. I've had experience with these people, and they know exactly who they're targeting, and it's very, very thoughtful on their part.
The President of the United States has now a Jewish daughter. She converted to Judaism, and a son-in-law, and Jewish grandchildren. There are a lot of people, though, who think that he should be more outspoken against white supremacists.
I think all elected officials, the president, members of the Congress, the Senate, local electeds, they need to do everything in their power to ensure that the language they're using are not dog whistles for white supremacist and extremist activity. We know that language is being used out of the White House and with other electeds is being used to help radicalize people online. We have a Center on Extremism that's monitoring blogs and Facebook and Twitter, and we're seeing that they're using that language as fuel.
I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully next year when we have you on and there's a new report and the numbers are a lot better and more progressive than they are right now. Very scary.
Yeah, God willing, I hope so. Thank you.
Evan Bernstein of the ADL in New York and New Jersey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
When we come back, Attorney General William Barr takes center stage in Washington defending his handling of the Mueller report while appearing before a Senate committee and then refusing to attend a hearing in the House. Now, big drama set for Monday. Will he appear? Some Democrats saying he should resign. Some say he broke the law. So what's next? We talk to our political team, Hank Scheikoff and Rick Klein, next.